Hello friends, this is Hedda. Welcome back to my channel. A couple of weeks ago I posted a video where I showed all my weekly spreads for May and I got a lot of positive feedback on that, so I thought I would do the same for June. Now, making 3 plan with me videos back to back has been kind of exhausting, but I thought it would make more sense to post this video before June begins instead of posting it in the middle like I did last time. So that's why we're here today. In this video, I'll continue where I left off in my previous video. So if you haven't watched my May plan with me, I'll leave a link to that in the cards and in the description box. And now I guess we'll just get into the spreads. As you know, my theme for June is my dinosaurs with elements of pride and stationery. I made 4 sheets of printables for my patrons this month, so I decided to use parts of them for each week and then doing 1 dinosaur per weekly spread. I think it turned out really cool, especially because I'm planning on writing with the color of the dinosaur each week so that it will be more monochromatic, like in the yellow spread I'll write with a yellow pen and so on. First out is Fiona, the yellow dinosaur with spiky scales. Fiona is really into music and she plays the bass. She was definitely watching the Eurovision last week. Her favorite genre is alternative rock actually, and her guilty pleasure is rocking out to Paramore and Muse. She is a remnant of my teenage years and also represents my love for karaoke. This spread is a little bit all over the place. I was just testing out some different ideas that I had in my head to make the spread very yellow but also not too overwhelming. For all my weekly spreads for June, I have a focus section and a tasks list, as well as a mini calendar and then a section for each day. But the days, headers, and of course the decoration is a little bit different every week. Especially when setting up 4 weekly spreads in one sitting, I think it can be helpful to establish some elements that will be similar and then build the rest of the spreads around that. I like all of my spreads to be different because it creates a natural divide between each week, and we all like to feel like Monday is a fresh new start, right? I'm a bit sad that the rainbow in the bottom left corner kind of blended a bit too well. Although I used a lot of different shades of yellow, they weren't different enough, I guess. You're going to see a lot of shifting light in this video because when I sat down to film, it was nice and overcast, but still bright, and then suddenly the sun decided to stop by and shine directly in my face, and then just like 15 minutes later there was a rainstorm. So yeah, I can't really control the weather, and that's okay. In all of these spreads I only use 2 different fine liners for anything that's black in the spread, in the sizes 0.05 and 0.03. The brand doesn't really matter, but one of them is a deleter pen and the other one is an Artline pen. I used a Tombow mono glue tape to glue in all the printable stickers, and for the markers I basically got out all of my yellow markers and highlighters and I used whichever fit best. So I have Tombow dual brush pens, Crayola super tips, zebra mineliners, and iconic 2-way pens, which is what I use to mark the focus section. For the days of the week, I just made simple headers using a fun bubble font that I hope will tie these weekly spreads together with the monthly spreads. And the final touches include a nice little quote about sunshine by Helen Keller. It says, "Keep your face to the sun and you will never see shadows." And then I decided to just draw some sparkles and dots all over the spread to give it something a little extra. Yellow is one of my favorite colors, so I'm really excited for the first week of June and to write with my yellow pen. Alright, that's all for this first spread. Let's move on to the second week. This spread will feature Margaret, the purple dinosaur with spiky scales on her back. For this I got out all of my purple markers, and then I started by putting the same June header and focus section in the top left corner as on the previous spread. So that's kind of the part that I keep consistent throughout all of the spreads. I normally don't set up 4 weekly spreads in one sitting. At least up until now I haven't. I kind of planned out the first weekly spread the day before filming this, but the rest of the spreads I winged completely. I just didn't film the sketching part or the cutting of the printable stickers. I decided I wanted more stationery themed components in the spread, so I used similar notepad sheet designs, if that makes sense, as I used in my monthly setup to make some of the boxes for the week. The VIP of the setup is definitely the iconic two-way pens because the fine nib of the highlighter is so fine and makes the perfect muted lines for the boxes so that when I write on top of it, it won't compete with my gel pens. I used both the purple and the gray one in the spread. Oh, and let me tell you a bit about Margaret. She's a yoga instructor and her favorite fruit is pineapple. She lives in a tiny house and she's basically all the healthy habits that I don't have. She's in tune with her dinosaur body, and she also knows that exercise is a celebration of what her body can do, not a punishment for what she's been eating. Basically, she's a very wholesome and healthy dinosaur. I love all the different purple shades that I was able to fit into the spread. I can usually never decide if I like blue purple or pink purple more, and I often try to stick with just one of them in one spread, but here I just went for it with all that I had. Instead of having each day be kind of free flowing, I made some of the days in boxes and then some of the days without boxes. I tried to vary each box so that no day would be the same, and I think the spread turned out quite nice. I like how soft and kind of soothing pastel purple is, and these colors definitely take me back to my February setup of this year. This year I've been trying to use a lot of different color palettes each month, with January being black and white, February being purple and yellow, March was brown and green, and then April was pink, and May was a mix, I guess, but lots of like dark blue, dark yellow, and green. And now in June I just went in with all the colors, I guess. I'm trying to think of colors I've never used before in a monthly theme, and it's probably red. I don't think I've ever made a red theme, and I don't think I ever will either because it's such a bright color. I'm a little bit scared. The quote in the bottom right corner says, "Laughter is magic that dispenses clouds and creates sunshine in the soul," which I thought was very fitting for Margaret's spread. I know I say this in basically every video where I make bullet journal spreads, but little details like drawing thin squiggly lines around boxes or illustrations, or adding sparkles or just color dots or geometric shapes or even drop shadow really makes all the difference because it just looks effortlessly put together. Does that even make sense? I have this obnoxious urge to add sparkles to everything now, and I think it's a work injury. The third weekly spread is dedicated to the OG Walter. He used to represent the highest tier on my Patreon, but since adding a fourth tier, he's no longer on top, but that's okay, he's still number one in my heart. This is definitely the most structured spread out of all four, since I made boxes for literally everything. The basic structure of this spread is that I separated each page into a slimmer outer column and a wider inner column, and then I used the inner column for the days of the week and the outer column for decoration, tasks list, and a focus section. Let me tell you a little bit about Walter. He's an explorer, an inventor, and a general adventure enthusiast. He enjoys the camper van life, and he's always testing his inventions on his dinosaur friends with varying degrees of success. He is a free soul and the adventurous and carefree part of me. He is the color of my eyes and the curious child in me. I guess he just kind of symbolizes courage to me in a way, and that's why he's so important, even though he's just a silly little dinosaur. As promised, I tried making a monochromatic rainbow again, and I think this one worked better than the yellow one because I had a much wider range of blue markers to work with than I did yellow. I really like how this spread turned out in the end, and I know I'll be very happy to have this kind of structure this particular week. Since it is the busiest week of the month for me, this is the week where I have to have all of my Patreon rewards up, as well as my monthly plan with me video, which is usually my biggest video project of the month. So there's a lot going on, and the spread is laid out in a way that looks very tidy, so I hope that will help me keep my mind clear and on top of everything that I need to get done. Since I am self-employed, it's very important for me to kind of figure out what I have to do for each month. And in June, I will focus a lot on getting a bit more ahead on videos because lately I've just been like struggling to get it ready for each week, and that's not a good way to do it. So I'd rather be a little bit ahead, and also want to design more sticker sheets for my shop. So those are two things that I'm going to focus on the most for June. And of course, summer is approaching and I really want to enjoy it this year, more so than I did last year when I was writing my master's thesis. So basically, work hard to get the creative stuff done, but also take the time to jump in the fjord whenever I want to. The quote I chose for this spread says, "Thunderstorms are as much our friends as the sunshine," because sometimes we need to experience the less nice things in life in order for us to grow and learn. Walter knows this because he makes mistakes all the time while trying to invent new things and explore the unknown. The last thing that I had to do to complete the spread was to make the headers for each day, and I did them all in the same bubble font instead of trying to experiment with different headers for each day. The last weekly spread is dedicated to Charles, the last dinosaur to join my Patreon mascots. Somehow I ended up with a green spread for the last week of June as well as May. The last weekly spread is always the hardest one to make for me because I always feel like I've exhausted my creativity within the theme of the month, and then I end up trying something different that I don't really like. This time though, I was a bit more strict with myself and I tried to not do that and just go with the elements from the other weeklies. I made it half boxes and half free-flowing days, just like in the second weekly spread, and I made sure to make the layout differently as well. There's no quote on the spread because somehow I couldn't fit it. I think that the days of the week have a little more room to write than in the other spreads maybe. And this is what happens when you don't plan ahead, I guess, but also it's not that big of a deal. Let me tell you a little bit about Charles. Charles has a green thumb, which might not come as a surprise as he is all green. His favorite hobby is gardening, and he's also a plant-eating dinosaur, so that incentivizes him more to work on that vegetable garden. He's the part of me that wishes I could have a house with a garden and a greenhouse and just spend all my time digging in the dirt and caring for plants, because that honestly makes me so happy, and it's my favorite time of spring when it's time to repot all of my plants and just make sure that they all have enough room to grow during the summer. It's kind of a constant struggle within me because I love living in the city, and it's all I've ever known really. I've always lived in cities, but sometimes I just kind of want to move into a cabin in the woods and just be. I made a mistake on the right page here in this box that I'm filling in right now because I ended up writing Saturday instead of Friday. So I just took a header from my Patreon printable and glued it on top. Honestly, it worked out quite well, and I just want to remind you that one small mistake doesn't ruin the entire spread, and there's no reason to panic or to scrap it all. Of course, I made the mistake on the last spread because the last weekly spread is just never perfect. I know that some people get upset with me when I say these things because I've had people write angry comments about having OCD before, but honestly, if you don't have OCD or ADHD or some other neurodiversity that gives you hints of OCD, I truly believe that you can train yourself to accept small mistakes and be more forgiving and easygoing on your art. And please know that I come from a good place when I say this. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad or anything. It's actually the first time in a long time that I'm really happy with all of the weekly spreads, so that's really satisfying for me. And if you're interested in getting the dinosaur printables, head over to my Patreon. If you just want the dinosaur stickers, you can find them in my little shop at ikigaipapir.com. Here is a little flip through of all of the spreads that I made in this video. I think that my favorite might be the purple spread, even though I like yellow more than purple, but I just think that the purple one just worked out so nicely. So now I am completely ready for June. It's been a long time since I had all of my spreads set up before the beginning of the month, so this is like a new experience for me. I know some people like to set up their journals like way ahead of time, but I'm usually more last minute with the weekly spreads. The monthly spreads, of course, I have to set up earlier because of the video. But yeah, if I continue making these weekly spread videos, I won't be able to be last minute anymore. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Maybe you got some ideas for your own journal for June. And if you watched this video all the way to the end, then let me know in the comments which dinosaur is your favorite and why. I hope that you're all having a lovely day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!